All right, class, we have seen not only one of the largest European non-YCS events, but also a YCS. What are the best rogue decks in Yu-Gi-Oh right now? As you guys already know, my claim to fame isn't making accomplishments with only rogue Yu-Gi-Oh decks. It's actually getting you guys the information that you need to be able to succeed in life, whether it's Yu-Gi-Oh or anything in between. And in today, we're going to be talking about the top Yu-Gi-Oh decks that I think would have a really strong chance at beating the meta and why. Let's go ahead and jump on in. What's going on with ya, big dogs? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that's your day phenomenal. But if it isn't, find the first person you can and squabble up. Wait, that's not the right one. Beep. Don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. Today, big dogs, we are going to be talking about rogue Yu-Gi-Oh decks because easily those are some of my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh decks of all time. They are some of the strongest decks in the game because it allows you to be able to pull the card of the top meta decks, essentially have hard counters to them built into your deck, but if you pilot them correctly, they can go against a wide range of other strategies in the game. I personally love rogue Yu-Gi-Oh decks because A, no one is expecting them, and B, because they are incredibly hard to play. For me personally, it just feels so rewarding to win with a rogue Yu-Gi-Oh deck, a deck that players don't see coming, and it forces them to put some respect on your name. So of course, if you guys have a favorite reason to play rogue Yu-Gi-Oh decks, or a favorite rogue Yu-Gi-Oh deck, or even a strategy that you think can fit in these categories that I'm about to talk about, then go ahead and let me know down below in the comment section. In fact, not only does it help the channel out, it also is a part of your homework, you slifer slacker. And I also want to point out is that for your rogue Yu-Gi-Oh deck, of course, you're going to want the best sleeves in the game. These are my own brand of sleeves, the Raven Wing 3.0. Now, I will admit to you guys, we are already working on the newest version, but that is the reason why these sleeves are going to be at a discount. I'm actually really excited, and as a brand owner, one of the biggest things that got back to me was you guys' feedback. So while I still think that version 3s are hands down the best sleeves on the planet, big dog, I'm also excited to improve on those sleeves and give you a brand spanking new product that blows the last one out of the water. So go ahead and go to TheCaliEffect.com and pick up your Raven Wing sleeves today because it is still the #1 sleeve in the planet. Let's go ahead and start off by talking about some powerful rogue Yu-Gi-Oh decks. When we look into the Yu-Gi-Oh meta, one thing we have to focus on is some of the weaknesses that the biggest decks have. Decks like Yugioh can only play one copy of Yugioh Detonator, and Malice absolutely hates when you can permanently get rid of a card. The only problem with getting rid of Malice cards is that banishing them, putting them into the deck or extra deck isn't necessarily an answer. So what would be an answer? Ironically, it comes from a mechanic where I think we all hate when it's used against us, but we love to use it against our opponents. Banishing cards face down almost guarantees that your opponent won't be able to recover those Yugioh Detonators and those Malice Link monsters. It's also insanely good against so many other Yu-Gi-Oh strategies because how strict the extra deck has become, which is also a big reason why I think that Kashtira is one of those ones and easily one of the best rogue decks in the game right now. Kashtira simply has one of the very few answers to so many Yu-Gi-Oh decks right now, because oftentimes players foolishly only play one copy of that card in their extra deck, so Kashtira Unicorn is a freebie for it. Also, since spell cards are being used in abundance and the graveyard is still important, you can argue even more important now that Abyss Dweller and Dimension Shifter are banned, Kashtira Birth becomes a lot stronger by proxy. I also absolutely love Kashtira Finra. This card by itself is a one-hitter quitter. I've been saying this since the card came out, but for my boomers, Kashtira Finra is literally a modern-day Cyber Dragon. Not only does this monster have beefy attack and can banish cards face up on the field when they activate monster effects, the best part about Finra is that it can fetch another copy of itself, meaning that it can put your opponent in really bad situations where they have to address the Finra only to be punished with another copy, or for you to have card economy to be able to use for other effects. And the best thing about Kashtira is that it is amazing as its own deck, and it's also amazing when you mix it with other Yu-Gi-Oh strategies. Don't do that stank face just yet, but with players players have been doing is mixing Cash Tier with Fiendsmith. And the biggest reason is because 2 Cash Tier cards is full Fiendsmith combo, and Cash Tier Birth can bring them right back. They've also been mixing it with Primite and Bestial cards, but the best thing about Cash Tier is that any normal summon dependent engine is no problem for this deck since it's a special summon heavy deck anyways. And on the flip side, Cash Tier itself can be used as an engine in so many decks, so even if you don't decide to play Cash Tier by itself, right now the strategy is crazy strong because you can mix it with some of your other rogue strategies to be able to compete. 2 other engines that Cash Tier players are going to try to tinker with is easily going to be the Dragon Rulers. Cash Tier just so happens to have Earth, Wind, Fire, and Water monsters, and the Dragon Rulers just so happen to have those attributes too. They also just so happen to be level 7 and an Exceed based Yu-Gi-Oh deck, so there is a little bit of mixing going on. And then there's the Regenesis cards. Those cards are a little bit of a mystery to me. I want to do even more research on this strategy before I talk about it in depth, but there's definitely a lot of rumblings going around since we in the TCG have way more Cash Tier cards than players in the OCG that may be a fit. And speaking of Cash Tier, there is actually another rogue strategy that you could incorporate the Cash Tier engine in. In fact, Cash Tier Fenrir by itself is full combo for this deck, not only being a card that can disrupt your opponent, but also being a bridge into your entire engine. The deck that I'm talking about is Fire King, a deck that has been on fire the last couple of months. Not only did it win a major YCS in last format, it actually won a 800-man French Open, which is crazy. And then the deck turned around and won a regional, and I wouldn't be surprised on Fire King's accomplishments throughout the rest of the format because, in honesty, I don't even think it's a rogue Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Fire King is sneakily one of the most powerful decks in the format, but for right now, we're going to classify it as rogue. And one thing that I absolutely love about the deck is that it has the simplicity that most Yu-Gi-Oh strategies should have. You see, instead of playing a million cards on a turn and summoning these huge boards, Fire King's main goal is to get 2 level 8 monsters to the side of the field and Fire King Sanctuary. What Fire King is so good at is that it counters multiple things at once. The Mole Charmy cards are almost completely useless against this deck. The deck doesn't really special summon a lot from the hand, deck, or graveyard. In fact, even if Max C were off the ban list, it would be pretty useless against this deck with the correct player. The next thing is that the destruction heavy cards really don't work against Fire King either. Keep in mind, anytime these monsters are destroyed by battle or card effects, they trigger their effects. So players are going to have to get really sneaky to be able to disrupt these cards. And the next best thing is that this deck can play Dominus Impulse. There is a huge reason why this card is almost $100 right now. Dominus Impulse stops some of the best cards in the game in their tracks and allows you to be able to activate it from your hand. The only drawback is that you can't use any Earth, Light, or Wind cards, which Fire King doesn't play any copies of. The also hidden drawback of Dominus Impulse is that it stops a lot of hand traps. With cards like Ghost Ogre, Nibiru, Effect Veiler, and Droll Lockbird, those cards being really huge to a lot of player strategies, you're going to really have to pick and choose which cards you can use when you're playing Dominus Impulse. The good thing about Fire King is that since it destroys the board fairly easily, you don't need Nibiru. You also don't need Ghost Ogre for that reason because it has tons of ways to be able to destroy spells and trap cards as well as monsters too. Effect Veiler and Droll might be nice, but when you have a trap card that can literally stop special summons and potentially destroy cards, you can make some sacrifices. I personally think that Fire King is how Yu-Gi-Oh should be played. It's very reminiscent of a modernized version of 2010 Edison Yu-Gi-Oh, and there just so happens to be another Yu-Gi-Oh strategy that fits that criteria too. I've been pretty harsh on Centurion as of recent because this deck really does suck at going second from time to time. It's also a deck that plays both light and dark cards, so the Dominus cards are completely out. Because of these two reasons, a lot of players have been sleeping on Centurion, but I'm here to tell you that this deck is a lot stronger than what I even gave it credit at one point in time. You see, Centurion has a couple of things going for it that some of the other decks don't. One is that since it is a light and dark deck, while it can't use the Dominus cards, it can summon powerful monsters like Chaos Angel. And Chaos Angel can be a game wrecker on its own. A lot of Yu-Gi-Oh strategies rely on monster effects to be able to get rid of cards, and a monster that is unaffected by monster effects and can't be destroyed by battle oftentimes can win the game by itself. But the chaosiness doesn't even stop because Chaos Archfiend is also no joke. I'm telling you, Chaos Archfiend is one of the most ridiculous cards that isn't played enough. And fortunately, Centurion can play it. A monster that can be 4,500 attack and attack all of your opponent's monsters, then summons Chaos Angel when your opponent gets rid of it is kind of strong. But that isn't the main reason why we play Centurion. The first reason is that we've actually fixed that going second problem. While hand traps can be pretty powerful at slowing your opponent down, because Centurion is a one-card combo type Yu-Gi-Oh deck, board breakers are especially effective. Cards like Metal Ronus and Ultimate Slayer are really good. But oftentimes, these cards force you to make extra deck concessions, something that Centurion can do when you build the deck right. There's also a new spell card coming out inside of Alliance Insight called Gordian Slicer, a card that allows you to banish cards from your hand to be able to get rid of your opponent's cards. And saying that Centurion is a one-card combo deck, I mean, it's kind of cooking, no? Because ain't no way I'm banishing 6 cards from my extra deck. That's a little much, right? I think another one of the best things that Centurion has in its arsenal is that players are going to start playing cards like DD Crow and Ally of Justice Psycho Reader just a little bit more. The Bystials are also still really good. Well, DD Crow and Psycho Reader don't have really good targets for Centurion, seeing that Centurion Oxilla can bring those cards back from the banish pile, and Centurion itself can play the Bystial monsters, which really help the deck synchro summon into 10 on your opponent's turn, while also providing disruption. I think that Centurion has a really good chance at being a strong, competitive Yu-Gi-Oh deck under the right player's hands. Now, another deck that you guys doubted even when I did my deck profile is that Tomb Keeper's deck.
Return the slab or suffer my curse.
Now, to backtrack just a little bit, I think it's a complete gut punch that Konami decides to give the strategy a name only after we were trying to figure out the deck's name. With the Odeon or Tomb Keeper or Apophis Trap Yu-Gi-Oh deck is still incredibly strong. I think one of the best selling points for this Yu-Gi-Oh strategy is that whether you play the Fiendsmith version, which is pretty expensive, or if you play the pure version, they both have a decent number of tops to be able to justify either one. With the Fiendsmith version, focusing on building huge boards, summoning monsters like Fiendsmith Desiree, getting into Silhouette Rabbit a little bit easier, and also summoning Wave King Caesar, this version of the deck allows you to be able to combo off a little bit more, is a little bit more resilient to hand traps, and can still punish your opponent with those crazy trap monsters. The trap version is a little bit different. It's a little more stealth. It can search any trap card in the game. And the best thing about this is that the deck can keep recycling the cards kind of like how Labyrinth does. But the deck does have an entirely different element to it because this version of the deck is focused more on hand trapping your opponent, bringing down their resources, really good board breakers, but more importantly, those Odeon trap cards. You see, those trap monsters just needed the correct deck to be in, and Apophis of the Swamp Deity is one of those cards. It's actually insane that it allows you to negate cards on the field up to the number of trap monsters that you have. And when you combine that with Statue of Anguish pattern, it gets kind of crazy. This is a deck that regardless of what mode you play it, it's really good at being able to disrupt the opponent before they can make the board that they want, negating their powerful effects, destroying their cards, but more importantly, that man of the mark is a lot stronger. It's damn near invincible when you have the right setup. Odeon actually has enough gimmicks to be able to survive whether you're playing the pure or the Fiendsmith version. And that brings us to our fifth and final deck, the Copium Take. Now class, I genuinely love the fifth deck because we get to talk about a strategy that may not fit the criteria. The strategy may not have been statistically successful. The deck also may not be as consistent as you want to, but when there's hope, there's a way. Keep in mind, people said I was coping about pure Fire King, and look what happened. So I think that is really time for us to get serious when I say that Ododic Mitsurugi Alien Reptile, whatever that deck is a contender. Bro, what I'm telling you, Reptile's got more support. It got more support, is it? It's the best deck in the universe. I'm not coping. I might be coping. Players want to talk about Mitsurugi Raizio being a really good deck. And while I don't think that it's a bad deck and it gets some crazy support, what's probably better would be Mitsurugi by itself. In fact, I think that Mitsurugi might be one of the best TCG strategies that Konami has ever released in their entire history, well, maybe since Burning Abyss. Sticking to the right now, Mitsurugi does play a couple of bricks, but when you can get that planet pollutant virus effect off, putting all of your opponent's monsters permanently under Baguska mode with Cosmic Slicer, the cards are actually kind of sick. And now that the ceiling of the best decks in the game is significantly lower, I think it's an opportunity for this strategy to be able to compete. But the best thing about it is that the new support for Mitsurugi is actually crazy. I think it's best that the new support for Mitsurugi benefits Mitsurugi. It kind of branches away from a rank 4 deck and focuses more on the ritual base, the ritual summoning, which is important. It allows Yugioh players to be able to play some, but not gain the benefits of every Mitsurugi card, while also approaching reptiles to make them a lot more consistent of a Yu-Gi-Oh strategy. Of course, if there's anything that I absolutely love about Yu-Gi-Oh is when decks get ultra consistent. It's one of the biggest reasons why some of the best decks with potential can't make it. And now that we do have this next wave of support, I think that they may be enough to put Mitsurugi over the hump and not just be a Yugioh deck. Well, class, that is all what I have for the top 5 rogue decks in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. Of course, you already know your homework. First, you must buy some Raven Wing sleeves. Go to TheCaliEffect.com and pick up a mat too while you're at it. But next and more importantly, be sure to check out these other videos so I can catch you on the next one.